All right, Dr. Q.
Like, the other times.
All right, Dr. Q back here on the Healthy Swag Podcast. I have my friend and guest, Joey Kibble, who's pulling an all-nighter with me right now with these podcasts. My goodness, we're going in, but he's got a lot to say, so much to say.
There you go. There you go.
Anyways, it's like low-hanging fruit, but no, but seriously, so I thought it would be great. I know recently you had kind of a health challenge or a health scare recently in regard to your prostate PSA, and you've been very transparent about it and gracious enough to talk about it. Who knows, there may be someone watching or listening that is dealing with the same thing. So, we like to, kind of share your experience to tell others, what you went through, how you navigated that whole process, and how you came to the other side. So, go ahead. I'll just let you have the floor.
So I get my yearly checkup every year, or supposed to. Last year I did not get the checkup because there were just scheduling issues. But around February, I went in to get my physical, and the way they do it is, if everything is good, you don't get any callbacks. Now I'm kind of wondering whether that's the best approach, but because a couple of weeks had passed, and I'm like, all right, just like, the other times, I am good. After the first week, I was like, who's calling my phone? But if they're not calling, I'm like, okay, I'm all good. It was probably, I think, about a month later that the doctor's office called back and was like, so the fact that I see you calling right now, I'm already stressed because you ain't calling to have lunch with me. So I'm like, okay. So in my mind, I'm like, well, just get to the point. Like, let's stop with all of this. And they're like, well, your cholesterol, it's a little elevated, but it's good. Okay, you didn't call to tell me about my good cholesterol. At the end of it, she said, Danny, he's concerned because your PSA is elevated. So from 2 years ago, when you got your last PSA, it was 2.0, and it is a 6.1 now.
Wow.
And so, honestly, it had to be enough of a concern that you called me back. This is what's going through my mind. I don't know what that actually means. I don't know what the scale is. Is this a 10-point or 100-point or 50-point scale? Like, I really don't have any idea, except that it's elevated, and it's as much a concern that you've called me back. And so he wants you to come in and get a second PSA test. And so, funny thing was, my wife was standing within earshot. And so I kept it cool. I kept a straight face. I didn't know what to make of it. But after I got off the phone, she was like, we're good? Or everything good? And I'm like, yeah, well, it's good. Everything's great. So he just wants me to come back in and get another, test to confirm whatever it is. And so she kind of looked at me like, do I need to be concerned about this? And I just went on doing whatever I'm doing. But in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm worried. Because I don't know what it means. I don't know the level of elevation. I don't know the alarm level. I don't know if we're in green or orange or red zone. I don't know what it's supposed to be.
There was no context behind that.
There was no context behind it.
Just for the listeners, this was a PSA, prostate specific antigen, which is a protein that's produced by your prostate gland. that when it's elevated, it could indicate that you have prostate cancer, because prostate cancer is not something that is painful that you necessarily will feel. And that's why it's important to get screened every year. And so that includes a PSA, which is what you got. You skipped a year, but that's what you had. And did you get a rectal exam? Because that's part of it as well at the
I did
time.
not get a rectal exam at the time.
Okay.
So,
Okay. That is my pet peeve as a urologist, because if you are going to do proper screening for prostate cancer, you have to have a rectal exam and a PSA. Okay, because one of those two, if one of them is off, then that warrants further investigation. So, all right. So you weren't given any context about this. You were
no
just said something
context.
is wrong. Excuse me. We need you to come back and get this rechecked.
They just wanted to schedule the confirmatory testing, PSA testing, to make sure that what we're looking at is what we're looking at, to make sure there were no mistakes. But that testing was going to be a few weeks out. It just so happened that I got a call from a friend who was calling me up, and he was excited about some business moves he was making, and he's talking about what he's doing now, and talking about what what kind of things he's excited about, and all his new discoveries. And he just happened to be a urologist, a friend of mine. And so in my head, I'm like, oh man, that's great. Oh, woo, that's going to be great. Yup, that idea, that's going to be incredible. In my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm going to run this by him, as soon as he comes down out the clouds.
And you listened to everything.
I did.
You were
See
engaged.
how attentive a listener I am?
You were. I'm
so
impressed.
I waited until the end of that conversation. I was like, hey man, I have something to run by you, kind of off subject or whatever. Here's what happened. Here's the PSA number that I got back. I know that I tend to have enlarged prostate, because I remember my dad telling me, talking about enlarged prostate that he had. And I'm figuring that, certain things can run in your family or whatever, but I don't really have any context. And in essence, how do you hear this number? Like when you hear this number, what are you thinking? Now, and it's essentially, I'm saying all this, I'm giving you the short version of all this. But Quentin was quiet for a while. Now, if I don't know if you know Dr. Q. I don't know, you all have seen some post or whatever. But when this dude is quiet for an extended period of time, it's like, okay, I probably shouldn't say that. Say that. But you're always so excited about the ideas and the stuff. And I have to say this about you. You are excited about breakthroughs, and you are excited about discoveries, and you're excited about bringing, like if it's screenings, and you feel like screenings need to happen, especially with African American men. Like that's the excitement that you're getting whenever you talk to him. I read it as passion for what it is that you do, what it is that you love.
Absolutely.
And he was quiet because he was listening. And then when he finally decided to speak, I'll let you take it from here.
I was gonna say, I was quiet because of basically being in a little shock that it took so long for them to call you with that. Going from 2 to 6 is a big jump. We have something in urology called PSA velocity. And that is what we look at, the rate of rise of PSA from one year to another. And that's really what we use as a tool to wonder or to know if there is anything that we need to worry about. And so for a man whose PSA is under 2.5, an increase of 0.35 in a year over that is considered abnormal. Okay. When you have a PSA of over 4 to start with, and you have a jump of over 0.75 nanograms per milliliter or year, then you are concerned about that being abnormal and there being cancer there. And so just knowing the statistics about prostate cancer in Black men, that we die from it more than any other demographic in the world, that we are 6 times less likely to be treated for prostate cancer or even be screened for prostate cancer. So it's a visceral reaction that I that I got when you told me that, because I'm like, doggone, man, like, okay, we need to investigate this further. So
Now,
that was
let me
the
repeat
pause.
in terms that I understood. 0.35 is reason for concern that the velocity.
If your PSA is under 2.5, if it was under 2.5, so say if it was 1 year and then it went up by more than 0.35 the next
So
year.
1.35, if it went from 1 to 1.35,
over 1.3, yeah, over
that would be
0.35,
reason
yeah.
for, okay.
Yes.
So then just imagine then him hearing that it went from 2.0 to 6.1. Y'all know how passionate this dude is. At one point I was like, is he still on the phone? Like, and I mean, instantly his tone changed. He was like, okay. And then what did you say?
Yeah, man. I said we need to get this checked, and we need to get an MRI first, just to image your prostate, and that's typically what I do for patients if we're concerned about prostate cancer enough to biopsy. I like to get an MRI first because sometimes the MRI can show us lesions within the prostate that we can target during the process. Sometimes these lesions are small, and so to have that extra bit of data, that extra information in order to utilize to be able to make the correct diagnosis is important. So I think that was the next step. I said, let's get you an MRI first, and then and repeat your PSA, and let's go from there.
So first you were a little upset because of the lack of assertiveness from the medical team over here. But then you went into, okay, and you clarified, like, you know what, the fact that changes could happen so fast, and this has been a 2-year span, and when I understood that, I understood what it was that why you were alarmed and you were ready to move. And I can appreciate why you were ready to take action. So, but before that, just so that, if there's anybody else that goes through this kind of thing, I got off the phone. And so now I got to tell my wife. And I got to let her know that the thing that I thought was, not so big a deal, or whatever the case is, that I didn't understand. Now I have context to understand what my number, how to interpret my number. And the first thing that happened, unless you don't want me to be honest, the first thing that happened was I'm like, oh my goodness, we went into alarm. Like the two of us, like I had to wait until my daughter, my 5-year-old, went to bed. I had to wait because I didn't want her. I didn't know how to interpret this information, but I had to share it. And I'm one of those who don't like to communicate bad news. So one of the things that I have to practice in my marriage is communication, and specifically to communicate news that stuff I haven't figured out. I don't know what the end result is going to be because it represented vulnerability to me. I don't know what to expect. I don't know what kind of situation that I'm in, and I felt extremely vulnerable. So having to share with her, it sounds like this is something of an alarm situation. Like, you made it clear. It's like, we cannot say that it's cancer. We cannot say what it is until we go through the proper procedures. So we have to go through those procedures, but I had to communicate first.
Absolutely.
And that
Absolutely.
communication, like that, we didn't sleep that night. Like, it was just, I mean, I told her and I broke down because I've had people die of cancer on both sides of my family. And I've heard that, a couple of uncles had prostate cancer and they had to go through. And when you don't have an understanding or a context, when you don't know what options, because first you have to understand what the context is, but then you don't know really what options there are. And you have a vision in your head without these other options and details. You have a limited vision of what's going to happen. And I just kind of fell to pieces looking at this vision that was missing components to it. And instantly, this might be humanity. You just go to the worst possible outcome.
Of course.
And I was trying to wrap my head around the worst possible outcome. And that's it's not a good way to approach receiving information, but it's natural. That's what happens.
It is completely natural. And I tell people all the time, when you hear the C word or, that is a possibility, it just changes things.
Yeah.
And, you are facing the possibility of your own mortality. Even though what I know is that prostate cancer, if you find it early enough, is treatable and curable.
Yeah.
The key is early detection and screening. But the average person doesn't, they just hear cancer and that their mind takes them to a place. And that's what happened to you. So you had to process that. You had to figure out how to tell your wife, go through the emotions, try to be strong for your daughter, not kind of let her see you sweat, so to speak. Then it came time to have your first imaging study or the MRI. Talk to me about that, how that experience was.
So that was a few weeks later because we had to get it. So I had a choice to make, and that was find a urologist here in Nashville, Tennessee, or consider going to North Carolina where your practice is. And so I had to kind of weigh that out. But we realized that it was much more advantageous if we were to travel to North Carolina, and it was probably because of my trust level as far as you and I and the relationship we had as patient client. This was, I had gotten checked up before. So this wasn't the first time.
Not the first rodeo.
No, it wasn't the first rodeo. So we had to schedule with your practice. And so that took actually a few weeks. And so it was a process of realizing, okay, who are we going to share this with? Or where are we going to close this circle? Because to me, this was a very important decision. And I've learned that you don't need to share everything with everybody. Everybody can't handle these kinds of decisions that you have to make. So you have to understand who is in your inner circle, who can be trusted with this information. And I didn't need people to just be alarmed.
Particularly when you didn't know what the end result was going to be anyway.
Especially because I didn't know what the end result was going to be. But so I scheduled an appointment. We scheduled an appointment to both. It was supposed to be both to get a second PSA test and to get an MRI so that we could see what it was, the area that we were looking at. And as you described, put that on top of the data that we already had to be able to get a good image of what we were looking at. Yes. And so I came in now, unfortunately, I think they forgot to actually do the second PSA test that morning. It happens. But I came in to do the MRI. That's not a process I had gone through before.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to put, they have to inject at a certain point. No, first they had to take blood.
Mm-hmm.
That blood that they were supposed to take is checking the
Your kidney function,
health level of my
kidneys.
Kidneys?
Mm-hmm.
Checking the health level of the kidneys.
Mm-hmm.
So that the dye that's put in to make sure that everything will be fine with my kidneys.
Absolutely.
The blood test was also supposed to be, some of that blood was supposed to be sent for the second PSA test. So my kidneys looked like they were fine when they looked at my blood test, that I could, take the dye when it's time. So
Mm-hmm.
they put me into the room with the machine. They explained very well everything that you're going to feel. This is just a machine. It's going to take, you're going to hear a lot of sounds coming from the machine, but it's just a machine. And the reason why that's important is because when you're in a new situation and you don't know what to expect, for people to be able to share with you what to expect
Mm-hmm.
goes a long way to put you at ease.
Wow.
Because
Nice.
I don't know if any of those new sounds means, this is wrong, take him to the emergency room, it's more terrible than we thought. And to a simple mind, who doesn't know this kind of stuff, it's helpful if somebody says, oh, you're going to hear, it's going to do a whole bunch of stuff. That doesn't mean anything's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That just means the machine is working.
Mm-hmm.
Then they're going to lay you flat on the machine. They don't want you to move. They don't want you to move. And you're going to be there for about 30 to 45 minutes. I think.
And are you two questions? Did you have to prep with anything? And are you claustrophobic? Did they tell you that you would be covered up as you went through the tunnel?
Yes, I wasn't just naked going into the machine. You asked me a couple of times if I was claustrophobic. I was sure until the second time that you asked me, and I'm like, maybe this ain't the first time he's asking me. Maybe I am claustrophobic. I didn't think I was claustrophobic, but
Hold on. I got a funny story. My wife, though, she found out she was claustrophobic with getting an MRI. She didn't know it either. And when she got in there, it hit her, and she's like, Lord Jesus, get me out of here. I mean, they could not do anything to keep her down. So I think I'm very sensitive about that.
Yeah. And I appreciate you doing that because it's a new situation. Mm-hmm. So you don't know how you're going to feel about it. And so I have not known to myself to be claustrophobic. I'm good in elevators or whatever. So they laid me down. I was in a gown. They said that I would not, that they'd rather me not move because the machine is taking wholesale pictures of scans of the inside of your body. And so they give you a button just in case you need to, let them know, hey, something's going on, or I'm feeling a little weird, whatever. And so I just lay on a table. There's this huge machine that is hollowed out, but they lay you on the table and then they slide the table into the machine. Mm-hmm. And essentially, all you really need to do is just relax.
Close your eyes.
Just close your eyes, relax. Now, I'm not going to lie, the kind of thoughts that go through your head, they could be, but you just relaxing. It's not, I didn't feel like I couldn't breathe. I didn't feel like that once I heard the many different sounds the machine was making, it's like, okay, I'm good. There's some scary thoughts, but they had already explained to me what to expect.
Gotcha.
And so I didn't know if it was going to be for 30 minutes or for 45 minutes, but that time passed and I was able to lay still. As the time was passing, because they had already put an IV in, there was a certain point where I would feel the dye being injected into my bloodstream.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't know what that was going to feel like. I didn't know if they said it might feel like a cool rush or whatever. But I do remember it starting to be dispersed into my bloodstream. I was like, okay, that's got to be it. Because I could.
Did you feel warm or did you feel some
It
kind
was
of
cooler. It was definitely
cool? Okay.
cooler. And I was, again, but because they let me know what to expect, I was good. I was okay. So the bedside manner was great.
Good.
So this gave the contrast in my bloodstream with the pictures so that they knew they could see clearly what they were looking at.
Right.
And they had already focused in on the area that we were looking for.
Yep.
And so we came out of the machine, and because we scheduled the consultation to happen on the same day because I was coming in from out of town, I just needed to kind of wait until we had our appointment, and they were processing the imaging. They were going to send my doctor the imaging, and we'd have the consultation about 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock or something like that. And so it is a lot of waiting, a lot of time to
I'm trying to
talk
remember
to yourself and encourage yourself.
Did the result come back at the afternoon appointment? Did we know that then?
Yes.
Okay.
At least the imaging came back.
Okay.
And it took a little while because it was coming back the same day.
Right. Okay.
But the imaging came back, and you were reading it there for the first time because we had to wait a little bit longer because they were still producing the imaging that needed to come back. And so when it came back, of course, my wife was on the phone and to hear the result or whatever. And a part of me still thought that you would know if it was cancer. Like, again, it's my mind expecting the worst. But I'm pretty sure you were clear about saying this is just going to show us what it is we're looking at. But you did not say, hey, this was, we'll tell you if it's cancer or not. That's not what was to be said.
I'll just jump in right here because it's important to note you cannot make a cancer diagnosis based on imaging alone. And so, yes, the MRI does help us find areas of interest, regions of interest that we can target with our biopsies, but there's no guarantee. I've biopsied guys in the regions of interest that didn't find any cancer, and I've biopsied guys in regions that weren't of interest and found cancer. So an MRI is not an infallible imaging modality. It is a tool that we use to help gather more information. So if it's positive for what we call an index lesion, then we schedule you for the UroNav guided biopsy, a fusion biopsy, where we take that MRI image, load it onto our ultrasound machine, and are able to target in real time that region or regions of interest with pinpoint accuracy to determine if there's cancer, as well as biopsy the entire prostate. And so I guess you must have had a region of interest that we saw because we were scheduling you not long after that. How long was it after that we scheduled for your biopsy?
That was a Wednesday. And I remember you had, it was going to be a few weeks before you were able to actually schedule me in. But for some reason, we found a sliver of opportunity that next Monday.
I had an opening and you were going out of town. You were going on tour or something.
I was going out of town.
And that would have delayed it. Okay.
And that would have delayed it. You were going out of town. And that would have delayed it as well. But he was gracious enough to fit me in that next following Monday morning. And so what you did tell me was, this is what the imaging shows. We see the enlarged prostate. We see what it looks like how the size of it or whatever the case is. And that explained, certain challenges that I had, going to the bathroom or whatever the case is. But also you saw, the lesion. And when you said lesion, again, this is why I say this from a patient perspective. Somebody who hasn't heard the word lesion thinks, oh my goodness, that's it. That's cancer. No, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. We found it. Go tell everybody. And so I asked him, though, I was like, okay, so what does lesion mean? And I remember your definition was it's a generic word for a group of irregular cells. I was like, oh, okay. And you said, at this point, we still cannot say that it's cancer. So you reassured me that, we still don't know until we take a biopsy of not just the area, but the surrounding area.
Yep.
And so the next surgical procedure then was going to be that biopsy that was going to take place. So this time, my wife and I, at the time that we're talking about, I came by myself, drove up by myself. The time for the biopsy, she was going to come with me, with my daughter. They stayed in a hotel. And so the surgical procedure was not going to take more than actually 20 minutes is what I was told.
Yeah, it wasn't long. It's just that you are under anesthesia at
Which
the time.
is a great thing.
You can't drive for that. So take me through that. I remember meeting Tina and Aria and Aria was like oblivious, I think.
Yeah.
And it was nice. She really didn't understand what was happening. And we talked a little bit about it beforehand. I want to say we prayed beforehand, and you just kind of, you were very stoic.
And let me share with you why I am a believer, and the spiritual approach was, God, you know exactly what this is right now. Like, he has been practicing this for as long as he's been practicing. We're going through procedures to find out what it is, but you already know what it is and if it's cancerous or not. And so my challenge was, if it is cancer, and I have to consider possibly, I'm one that was raised to believe, okay, God is a healer, and God, but I didn't know, okay, I know that you're a healer, but will you heal me? Like my situation. So I'm going through this process in my mind as I've been praying all of these weeks and what I've been asking for. And even if it is the case, if it turns out to be what I hope it's not, still, here's where my faith is. It's like, God, I'm asking for healing. I'm asking for whatever those options are, whatever it is that you direct me, because you're in control of this entire situation. And I know that whatever the case is, you mean all this for my good. So you wouldn't have known that as a doctor, because that's the process I had to go. So yes, I was stoic because I was in prayer the whole time. So he's cracking jokes, and I'm like, yeah, that's great. But that's what you said. And so once we drove back on Sunday night.
Hold on. So hold on. You skipped through you don't remember the biopsy, but what do you remember
I'm about
of
to
that?
go into the biopsy.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So we drove back to North Carolina Sunday night for the procedure Monday morning. And it was like at 6 a.m. There's a special soap that they like for you to use to make sure that the area is sterilized. There's an enema that you need to take to make sure that the working space is being cleaned. I'm not, I guess all of us are adults here. Yeah. And so I had to make sure that stuff was I'd taken the enema, make sure that I had scrubbed the air with that soap before, the night before and the next morning. And then we would be ready to go in. And just a word about the progression, the evolution of enemas. They have greatly progressed since I
Please,
had
we
them
want
as
to
a
know.
child. They're very much cleaner, more or less messy. It is just great. Okay, that's just the word.
Enema technology has improved. Great.
Technology has increased, has improved. So went into the hospital. Went into the
Ambulatory surgery
operating
center.
surgery center. And so they got me signed in. We decided that we're going to make this whole experience an enjoyable experience for our 5-year-old daughter because she doesn't know what's actually going on. And if I believe that I'm in God's hands, whatever the case is, then she should be able to enjoy this whole process. And that was a mature decision because sometimes we feel like I'm scared, I'm worried. You need to be scared too. You need to be worried too. And it's like she's 5.
Yeah.
Let's let her enjoy this. They let her color and all that kind of stuff. And then they took me in. I got undressed. I put on the gown. Then you finally came in that morning, and he was friendly as always. Now, also, he was authoritative when he came in. Here's what we're gonna do. Here's how it's gonna go. And you did end up praying with us, and that brought a lot of peace. That okay, if this dude is connected to the Maker who taught him everything he knows, everything he's experienced about this whole process, then I know I'm in good hands. Not just his hands, but I'm in the hands of the person who called him with this experience, with this passion to know all of these processes. I feel okay to put myself into the hands of the experienced doctor. So they came in with the anesthesia. I already had the IV in my hand. And so this is a little thing. I've had my wisdom teeth pulled. I've had vocal surgery. I've had anesthesia before. And I just do this thing where it's like, I am going to stay awake until I know I'm falling asleep because I want to know how this stuff works. So I'm watching everybody. They put me onto the gurney and they're wheeling me into the operating room. And I knew, I'm like, at some point they're going to put this anesthesia in. I was like, I'm just watching to see. And suddenly I was out and I'm waking up.
Isn't that a beautiful thing?
I don't know. When they put it in, I was looking at the light and I was great. And next thing I know, I was waking up.
It was over.
Done.
That's a beautiful thing.
It's a great thing.
It's I've had a colonoscopy maybe a couple years ago, and best sleep that you'll ever get. But yeah, just on a personal note, I was walking this journey with you, and actually almost feeling my own sense of mortality because it's like, man, like that is a fear that you have. Like you see it so much. And you're so close in age, and it's just like, man, like that could be me, and you handle it with such grace and faith. It really was a lesson in how to deal with situations that you don't know the outcome, what the outcome is, and so you were a witness even on your sick bed, so to speak, and how to handle that. So I thank you for that. So I was walking that thing with you, and I was so we go through that, and then it's a waiting game. Because we now, don't have, yes.
I realized how, at this point, we couldn't share the gravity with my daughter because she wouldn't be able to understand what we're doing or how important it is or any of that. But when she saw me on the table with these tubes, with these coming out of me. And she just had this look like,
what's going on?
Yeah, like, did we be, like, she didn't even want to come over and touch me because she didn't know what the IV tubes were. And she didn't know why I'm laying in this, like, it's all new for her. And at some point I had to give her permission, like, I'm good. You can come over and you can touch me, you can, hug me or whatever. And she's just like, so
wow.
Everybody else walking through it with me, Tina walking through it with me, she knew what to expect. But here's where your faith really sets the tone for even the people around you, how they should experience it. And and all I can go back with, because this was a very real challenge for me. I've been able to run triathlons. I've been at the end of myself physically, like, man, I want to quit. But this was a new challenge. And to be able to have that mindset of, he's got me covered. He has me in his hands. And this tool that he's going to use in this doctor, let you, God, you got the floor. Brought a level of peace that was just like, all right, let me go to sleep. So when I woke up, I was a little upset because I was like, I don't understand. Like, when did they put it in? Like, I didn't even feel tired. I was just suddenly out. Nobody asked me to count, like nothing. But now this is the funny thing. Tina said I had this conversation with the nurse. I don't remember this. I don't remember having the conversation. I barely remember it. But she had told me that she was either from London or someplace, and I apparently told her about whole tours that I've had in London. And I had whole conversations about it. And I don't even remember what I said.
They're probably like, who is this guy? Like, nobody, I don't think anybody knew who you were, really. But, like, they're like, this guy's just talking out.
And I was very serious. I've been to London. So then there was the ride home. And I had to be, we had to bring a pillow because I did feel some pressure. It wasn't pain, but it was pressure.
That's important. That's important. Yes.
Because I was expecting pain, but it was just pressure, in my crotch area. And so as I got into the car, you got to be, they warn you to be careful of how you sit down. You're going to get uncomfortable. You may have to, stop, take a break, get some gas, and walk around a little bit. But actually the ride back, the first part of it was a little uncomfortable, but actually by the time that we got back to Nashville from Asheville, which is maybe a little 4.5 or 5 hours, it had actually, I was good. Like even the discomfort
gone away.
was gone. And I had already eaten by that time because I had a good appetite when I came out of the operating room. And they were like, be careful about eating. We don't know if it's going to come up. But I was like, take me to my favorite breakfast restaurant. And by the time
shout out to back, what's your favorite restaurant? What is it?
First Watch.
First Watch. Shout out to First Watch. Yes.
Yeah, we go to First Watch, and I introduced him to wonderful First Watch. He had never experienced the glories of First Watch. But anyway, great. What I did have to deal with, though, is there was an amount of bleeding that would happen. They said expect it in your urine, expect it in other places. It'll take a little while because taking pieces of, little clips of your prostate, it's going to cause some bleeding, and it may be a little while before all of that blood is out of your system. You're about
absolutely. And I think I warned you. I like to warn all my patients about the bleeding that they see, because the way I like to describe it is the prostate is like Grand Central Station. Like everything kind of runs through it. Your urine, your urethra, your seminal vesicles, so your semen, and it sits right above the rectum. And so I always tell patients, you're going to notice some blood when you wipe on the tissue. You will probably notice it in your urine because the urine runs right through the prostate, and in your ejaculate. So don't be surprised if you see blood in your semen, because that's all normal.
Right.
So yes,
right.
you experience some of that.
Again, the communication to let me know that all of this is normal. And it probably took about a good 6 weeks before it was,
Clear.
It was clear. Now, urine wise, I didn't see it after that day.
Okay.
But, I did see, blood for a good 6 weeks after. And even that was normal. Like, it's a process I've never seen before, but it was good. So what ended up happening was I had to fly at the end of that week. It was Monday when we had the process, the surgery. That Thursday, I had to fly over to Poland. And so I'm on pins and needles because he was like, well, the results should come back about Wednesday or whatever the case is. And so Wednesday, my second PSA came back, but the results of the biopsy didn't come back yet. And so I was able to look in the portal, and my PSA had come back. It had dropped from 6.1 to 3.4. So y'all remember you saying, hey, that's encouraging, but we're still looking at this biopsy. We're still looking for because that's the
proof is in the pudding. Proof is in the pudding.
Let's all celebrate, but let's look for this biopsy. And so I think I was in Poland Friday night. I was expecting you to get the results. I didn't want to go to sleep, but I ended up falling asleep for their time difference or whatever. And you told me we had taken samples from 13 different regions, including the lesion. And the lesion, from what I remember, wasn't more than a centimeter in length. But not only did you take a biopsy from that area, but you took it from at least 12 different areas around the prostate.
Absolutely.
And so as I went to sleep, I got the text, and the text said no cancer. Now, I'm still I'm still waking up. But the first thing I was like, let's call my wife. Don't even say anything else. Let me call Tina. Let me get her on three-way. And we got on the phone, and you had also sent a picture of the results. And it showed each of the different areas, itemized each of the different areas. They weren't pictures, but each of the different areas where biopsies had been taken. And you said that each one of them came back non-cancerous. And I was that next concert, I was singing like a bird.
I know you were. I know you were. I remember you. Remember, I added you on to that day. I had like 4 or 5 other prostate biopsies that day. I think we got you in first, maybe.
Yeah. Yes,
but I think you were the only one that was not positive that day. Yep.
If you could see somebody shouting. And it caused me to feel like, let me be thankful for every single thing. And what I realized was, because it was like, God, handle this, I realized that you had been providentially put in my pathway, because we hadn't talked in about a year or so.
Yeah, we go spurts.
That you called me when you did. And the fact that my doctor gave me the information when I did it, and the fact that they couldn't get me back into the office, for another, that left opportunity for me to see you. And I realized that all things actually work together the way they're supposed to for my good. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where my real joy came from. This had all been meted out. My steps had been
Orchestrated.
ordered. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where my faith was like, God, you are absolutely real.
Yep.
And I understand from your perspective, the thing that you were so adamant about was certain ethnicities don't get the opportunity to be able to get the treatment, to get the screenings, to get those opportunities that others have. And I could see, and I learned to interpret your passion later as, I want you to have the information that's available to you so that certain things that you fear don't come about
Right.
because you didn't know to have it looked at. You didn't know to
Mm-hmm.
have it, you didn't know to ask questions. You don't know what the options are. And
Mm-hmm.
you assume that everybody has the same opportunity to get this information, but that's not the case. And because that was your passion, I was able to benefit from how passionate you were about me getting the information I needed and getting it in such a timely fashion that we found ourselves where we were. So my faith was through the roof. And then
Mm.
my thankfulness that everything had been walked out providentially in an order that was beyond what I knew. But I can look back and see, oh man, everything was aligned just right. I was so thankful from that situation, and it caused me to think, let me make sure I get in, get my physicals. Let me make sure that I eat right. Let me change my diet. Let me give my body the best opportunity to
Absolutely.
be able to kill foreign, properties that are not supposed to be there. It
Mm-hmm.
caused me to think, how can I change my diet so that I can stay in the best health?
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's possible, to do that, to get your body positioned in the best possible shape to ward off disease. That's completely possible. I do, I am passionate about this topic, and that's why I'm so grateful that you were willing to share your story, because unfortunately, the healthcare profession, there is some bias. Obviously, there is racism. I hate to say it,
Right.
in healthcare, but also there's just not enough information out there
Right.
for people to understand what they're even looking at.
Right.
The fact that you had that 6 and your doctor didn't even explain how crazy high that was compared to your other one, and there was no sense of urgency, and no context behind it. That's what I want to eliminate, the lack of information out there. So again, if you have a PSA that has been under 2.5 and it goes up by more than 0.35 in a year, that is reason enough to seek a urologist for further investigation. If your PSA is 4 and goes up by more than 0.75, that's also a reason. So, sometimes as men, we have to take the onus for our own health care, and we can't rely on other people. So,
Right.
thank you for being willing to tell your story. Go ahead.
Now let me bring it full circle. It caused me to, again, like I said, want to change my diet, want to be able to take in all of the fruits and the vegetables and stuff that have the properties that keep your immune system in their best shape to be able to kill and to
Mm-hmm.
ward off diseases such as what we're talking about. And
Mm-hmm.
that was the reason why you had called me on the night that you just happened to call me,
Mm-hmm.
that I was able to then have this conversation with you that started this whole process. That was the whole
Wow.
tie into all of this.
That's crazy. I didn't think about that. Yes,
Yeah,
yes. I mean, because that's exactly, as a urologist, you see men dealing with prostate issues, you see them dealing with erectile dysfunction or low T. And, how can we best position our health to perform at a high level all the time. And I understand, we can't always eat beets and kale every day, and fruits and vegetables. I mean, that's just not practical. I particularly when you're on the road, and so it is definitely, I was calling you about a supplement that I'm working on, and that would be in sort of an all-inclusive, comprehensive male supplement. So, so thank you for listening to me that day.
Glad I took your call.
And I will be sending you a shipment as soon as I have it to try it out.
See, look, come on now.
No, seriously, man.
If
Thank
this
you.
can add peace to anybody who is apprehensive about going through this process or apprehensive about doing the maintenance. We talked about on one of your last segments about taking your car in that you value to get its maintenance. This is the maintenance for the body. And it's like anybody who's having apprehension about that, this is investment into the health of your body.
Absolutely.
And it's hard to understand how important that is until many times you don't have the function that you've taken for granted. Here's the opportunity for you to put your body in the best position so that it can do its best work, that you can live comfortably in this frame and live in health in this frame. But by choosing, I'm not going to think about it, I'm not going to talk about it, I'm just going to act like it doesn't exist. It's like you can see the end result of, okay, come on, man. Let's utilize, because I will say this, God heals. Amen. Absolutely.
Amen.
But he will also have you make use of the vitamins and the minerals that he's caused to grow on this earth, and good practices. He's put passion in each one of us to hear and to do that. Like mechanics are passionate about hearing machines. Heart surgeons are passionate about listening to the heart and understanding what it's doing. Urologists are passionate about the function of the organs, that these are all God-given. So many times the healing that you may ask and may come in the form of, okay, I can touch your car and suddenly cause the engine that has stalled to start up again. But I may also send you to a mechanic.
Amen. Yep.
He may send you to the doctor's office and say, look, go through some of the means that I've made available. That's what happened to me this time, and I'm able to see the blessing of both of them. So I thank you, man.
Amen. Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Always get something out of it. Definitely. So I hope the viewers and listeners got something out of it too. Get checked, get your PSA, get your colonoscopy. Don't put your head in the sand. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help your family. That's not the move. So, as men, our mission really is just, we want to be the best versions of ourselves in every way, whether it's physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, all of those things. And so hopefully this helps us propel the conversation forward as far as our health is concerned. Thank you again for being transparent and willing to share your ventures.
Hey, it's the least I can do.
Oh man. All right, brother. Well, listen, until next time, thank you. And we'll talk soon. All right.
Success to you, man.
Thank you. You too. Take care.